When I tell you the world had never seen a player more hyped, more physics-defying than Zion Williamson, a 6'6", 285-pound, 45-inch vertical beast, I mean, he has us all captivated. It's 2018, Zion Williamson just blocked a three-pointer jumping from 10 feet out. He just signed a $75 million shoe deal before even entering the league. Scouts and analysts were already thinking GOAT potential, the most talked about prospect since LeBron James. And in the NBA, he was a force. No, he was the force. Averaged the most points in the paint since Shaq. Actually, even higher. He was a star. And fast forward to now, and we have...
Look like you showed up to the game having just ate a buffet.
The word out on Zion Williamson is that he'll eat the table.
Look like me and Shaq had a baby.
Damn!
He's not in shape. He doesn't run. He plays the game strictly on talent.
A nightmare. There have been only 3 NBA stars that have gained weight in a way that hurt their career. Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, and James Harden. But none have failed the way Zion has. In fact, I have never seen a star fall from the unimaginable heights he once was in this way. But what actually happened is far worse.
Is it hard to diet at your age? Be honest.
You? I'll be real.
What is up, dudes, that's ballers, players? It's your boy MJ. I decide I'm giving y'all more content, more shorts, TikToks, IG stories, rants, reactions, stories you've never heard of, and I'm excited. So like, follow, subscribe, whatever you want if you're a hoop fan. I appreciate it, and I'm gonna make sure it's worth it. There are several players in NBA history who end up gaining too much weight, like Eddie Curry, Raymond Felton, Big Baby Glenn Davis, and ruined any of their potential. But none were the level of player or potential of Zion, except for another player which I haven't mentioned and we'll get to. Zion has never been the modern player. He entered the league at 284 pounds without a jump shot, and his weight was met with mixed reviews. Some thinking he would be a mismatch nightmare, that his weight was actually a plus. His athletic ability was enough to make it a weapon. And there was another faction having concerns on if this playing weight was even sustainable. Reggie Miller said that Zion needed to lose 30 pounds to have a chance. But there's a player in NBA history who had a similar physical archetype. A 6'6" power forward in a more physical era that could still bang with everyone. Charles Barkley, a league MVP, you know, before he started doing this.
Whooping them
When he was entering the NBA draft, Barkley found out that the Sixers would only pay him 75 grand. And in his own words, I didn't leave college for 75 grand. So he took drastic actions. Charles Barkley specifically gained 20 pounds in 48 hours, from 283 to 302, all at the height of 6'6". Yeah, Barkley definitely a freak if he could play basketball at that weight, but the Sixers still picked him, undeterred from his 300-pound stature, and Barkley didn't stay that way. He immediately slimmed down to the 290-ish pound mark by the end of the camp. But not to everyone's surprise, that wasn't the right weight, and Barkley had help. Moses Malone.
And I think at that time I was like 290. He says, I want you to lose 10 pounds. So I lose 10 pounds, I'm 280. He said, I want you to get to 270 now. I get to 270. And now I'm like, okay, you can tell I'm in shape now and I'm getting to play. He says, get to 260. At this point, I'm starting to really start to kick some butt. I'm starting to play well. You can play obviously extended periods of time. And he says, I want you to get to 250. I'm really rolling right now. And then he said, get to 240. He said, I want to experiment. And I got to 240, but I didn't feel strong and explosive. He says, no, 250. 250 is your weight. And that's what I played my entire career at.
Barkley found he could be faster while maintaining enough strength to play bully ball despite being 4 inches shorter than the average power forward at the time. But again, Barkley wasn't able to jump 40 plus inches while being 285 pounds, so obvious differences. And we'd see it in Zion's rookie season, albeit only 24 games because he tore his right lateral meniscus in preseason. Just like he had busted out of his shoes in Duke, it seemed like Zion was putting too much pressure on his body. But man, was he electric. His strength was off the charts. Ripping the ball away from Giannis?
I am better.
He went off averaging 22.5 points on 58% from the field. And for his second season, Zion looked like a menace. He seemed to be in shape. I mean, look at this before and after. It was scary hours. It seemed like he had lost 10 to 15 pounds of weight. This second season needed to be spectacular. Zion needed to fulfill on some of the insane promise he had shown. The Pelicans had egregiously tanked to get Zion. If he didn't show out, if he didn't take a jump and consistently, the entire Pelicans organization would have looked like fools. And there's a player who did exactly what Zion is doing right now, and his name was Derek Coleman, just on a smaller scale. Derek Coleman was the #1 overall pick in 1990, a 6'10", 240-pound power forward that averaged 18.4 points, 10.3 rebounds, and won Rookie of the Year. And for the next 4 seasons, he would begin averaging 20 points a game, 11 boards. Charles Barkley specifically said, "I think he can be the best player in the world. When he's on his game, he's unstoppable." And that was while Barkley was still playing. But Coleman wasn't really a star in the NBA, not at that point, just on the cusp. But he also started to gain weight, not muscle, but fat, and was reportedly unfocused. I don't have the exact weight by year gains, but he eventually got up to 320 pounds? Wow! His teams also had better records when he didn't play versus when he did. As Sports Illustrated once put it, he played just well enough to ensure his next paycheck. Zion's teammates, on the other hand, only talk up Zion, don't question his work ethic, and as you're going to see, in his second season, Zion reached a higher height than Coleman ever did. So what did Zion do? He averaged 27 points on 65% true shooting. Literally finished the season averaging more points in the paint than Shaq and Giannis.
What the hell? No freaking way.
There wasn't an answer for Zion despite having minimal spacing. I mean, Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams were on the floor with Zion, and man was still getting it done. He was high-flying, dominant, showing us a passing vision, indicating that he had other weapons, and he was an all-star. The Pelicans still sucked, but the future looked bright, until reports started flooding in that Zion wasn't happy to be a Pelican. The NBA has always been a players' league. Former Commissioner David Stern made the decision in the 80s to market players to pivot away from the fighting, which was tanking the league. So they promoted Bird and Magic, and from there, they have always chosen players to promote more than teams, which the NFL chose. It's been Kobe versus the Big Three, LeBron versus Kawhi, Harden versus Curry. So the Michael Jordans, the Shaqs, Kobe, LeBron all got chosen. That also includes young players like Ben Simmons, Lonzo. Remember when your timeline was just filled with LaMelo highlights?
All right, we see the pass in from LaMelo. Oh, it's dumb nice. Oh, any player cannot do that, man. We are witnessing a great in the making. I don't care what happened after that.
And so was Zion. Man had already signed an 8-figure shoe deal before playing his first NBA game. His popularity was only comparable to a young LeBron. So that, paired with his actual success in the NBA, put Zion on a pedestal in his second year. And Zion fell for it himself. He was drinking his own Kool-Aid. You see, he wanted the Pelicans to keep JJ Redick, not Coach JJ Redick, player JJ Redick, and they didn't, even though they were part of the same agency. The Pelicans let Lonzo go even though he was a restricted free agent, and Zion was very public about wanting to keep Zoe. Last summer, rumors came out that Zion's family members wanted him out of New Orleans and onto another team. But the power he thought he had in his second year just wasn't there yet. It's hard to go from zero to hero back to zero when you make the NBA and have to start all over. But that's the new hierarchy. David Griffin, the Pelican GM at the time, tried to make a relationship with Zion by playing him the piano? Fair. Zion said he loves it in New Orleans and doesn't want to be anywhere else, even though all the coaches wouldn't run the fast break.
What the fuck?
Which brings me to another player who gained weight on purpose, very specifically to sabotage his team, and that's James Harden. But instead of avoiding a team to get drafted, he completely changed the history of the league, and I wish I was joking. 2 times James Harden wanted to leave a team, and 2 times we got images like this. What?
How do you do that?
The end of the James Harden Rocket saga was something else. In 2020, Harden said that he wanted out before the season even started, despite having 3 years left on his contract, right after Daryl Morey had stepped down and Harden wanted to go to the Nets. Not the Sixers, not the Bulls, the Nets. He partied like crazy publicly and came into training camp looking like this. Harden? More like Pillsbury Doughboy. And despite being out of shape in his first game, Harden dropped 44 points and 17 assists. It didn't matter how much weight he had, he was just good. His game has never been dependent on athleticism, and his weight has actually been useful in moving defenders in the paint and also keeping balance when defenders are pushing him. Harden was forcing his way out in whatever way necessary, saying the Rockets aren't good enough, hiring new agents, and of course, gaining weight. On January 12th, Harden played his last game with the Rockets looking like this. And yeah, the fat suit. The trade happened 2 days later on January 14th, and in those 2 days, we saw this. Harden looking fit, like really fit. It looked like he had lost 30 pounds in a span of 4 days. Fans were saying he just cut his carbs and was able to lose all that weight. Details are unconfirmed. And something similar happened towards the end of his Nets saga. He wanted out, and once again, somehow he looked like he had let himself go. And as soon as he got traded to the Sixers, bro went through a transformation. But Harden used his weight gain to put pressure on management while he was under contract. I don't know how much actual weight Harden put on. Camera angles can be deceptive. You can look like a different person depending on the focal length of the lens being used. And at 32, coming off a hamstring injury, any weight makes more of a difference and leads to this.
Harden gets inside. Block.
Still, it felt like Zion might be doing the same. He fractured his right foot in the 2021 offseason, got surgery, was scheduled to come back for the season opener, but he experienced a setback in December, and by March, it was clear that he wouldn't be back for the entire season. So an injury that was supposed to take 1 summer ended up taking 1 whole season away from Zion. And in the 2022 offseason, the Pelicans had a decision to make. Do we sign Zion? And if so, for how much? And yeah, they had noticed Zion's weight because this is what Zion looked like.
It looked like me and Shaq had a baby.
Yeah, boy was eating good and really taking time off.
This is bad.
And again, this begins to teeter that line of pushing a team too far, whether it was to get what he wanted or lack of discipline, but the Pelicans would still give him a max 5-year extension. But part of the deal is that he would have weigh-ins periodically through the entire 5 years. The sum of his weight and body fat percentage must be below 295. Yeah, the Pelicans noticed the weight issues too.
That's tough.
What we do know is that Zion signed this extension, and to get the full guaranteed amount, he needs to keep in shape. And so we saw it in 2022.
I feel like I'm in my best right now.
Zion looked ripped. His teammates were raving. Look at Zion side by side from the 2021 press conference to 2022, and there's a big difference. And he would have his most consistent season yet for 29 games before hurting his hamstring. Originally a 3-week recovery timeline that turned into the rest of the season. Zion's playstyle combined with his weight was hurting him. We can look at his landings, and he was definitely not landing properly to brace, especially for his 285-pound frame. Again, Zion was unstoppable. Man is literally Trunks going Ascended Super Saiyan against Cell. All that power, all of that size, but eventually that form uses too much energy and is unsustainable. Just like an NBA champion Shaq learned when he thought gaining weight would lead to success. He went from 285 pounds his rookie year to 315 his first championship year, and by 3rd championship, Shaq was over 400 pounds. There was an optimal playing weight in there somewhere, but not over 400. No one could stop him because even at that height, Shaq was quick, agile, able to have enough lateral quickness to defend. It was his agility that was his superpower because no one at even 300 pounds should be going coast to coast, and it was putting so much pressure on his legs. You ever seen Shaq's feet? They're atrocious.
Brother,
Injuries started to pile on until Shaq got into shape with the Heat. Pat Riley was special, the only man to get Shaq to lose like 100 pounds. But as Shaq got older, his weight became more of an issue and he got big, too big.
what is it?
So it should have been clear. Zion needed to change. And that's what happened. For the next season, Zion was 272 pounds. The 2023-24 season was one where the Pelicans had several scoring options. Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum. Zion didn't need to be the #1 scoring option. He only averaged 22.9 points, but his defense was more serious, much more effort at rim protection. It was the first year that by the advanced numbers, Zion wasn't a defensive liability. Yeah, he wasn't an all-star, but he played 70 games in a season. Problem solved. He could build on this. But there's something that the other 3 MVPs who gained weight on purpose did that Zion didn't. They lost weight, or specifically, they didn't relapse, at least until they accomplished their peaks. Charles Barkley stayed at a certain playing weight for years so he could play at his peak and become one of the best power forwards of all time. Harden had already become an MVP scoring champion and not gained weight in his prime years. Shaq gained weight and it worked, and even lost weight and maintained a lower weight to get a 4th championship. Zion hasn't. He's barely accomplished what everyone thought could be one of the most electric careers in NBA history, and we know why.
Is it hard to diet at your age?
Shit.
Be honest.
This is you. I'll be real. There are times when I will say that, man, that shit hard. It's hard, man. Like 20, 22, got a lot of money. It feel like all the money in the world, man. It is hard, but I'm at that point now where because of certain things, putting back like the wisdom around me.
So far in the 2024-25 season, Zion has only played 6 games, but had another hamstring injury. The same hamstring injury as earlier. And that begs the question, was it his weight? If you look at Zion in the introductory press conferences, Zion looked focused. Whenever you see a beard, you know that it's serious. Remember that Jimmy Butler bubble beard? Man didn't care about how he looked, he was just there to ball. At the current moment, Zion needs to rework his landing, perhaps lose even more weight. 6'6", 250 pounds would still be ridiculously heavy and strong at that speed and increase his longevity. Steph Curry reworked how he would move and land to protect his ankles. It's possible, but what just happened is a step back. And I'm not talking about the injury. A video surfaced of Zion getting a tattoo while he's been hurt, and at least on camera, he looked extremely out of shape. Now, when players get injured, weight gain happens because you're not able to play basketball, work out, essentially you're burning less calories. So you need to tailor a diet during that time that can maintain your weight. But seems like Zion isn't. If he's continuing the same diet when he's playing as when he's not, it's a lack of discipline. That leads to a cycle of injury, also a prolonged recovery time, and weight gain. While Zion appeared to have a competitive fire on the court, he has simply struggled being disciplined, and as a result, he's hurting his own potential. We know of players who were so talented but failed to have a work ethic to improve, like Ben Simmons. In the history of the NBA, we haven't seen a player like Zion in more ways than one, but he reached bona fide star status and is teetering a line. Actually, he's crossed it, already having missed 66% of games in his career. And I only hope that we can actually see the Zion that would blow our minds. The all-day notification watch out goes to the NBA Grade Teller. Appreciate you. And if you want to know why the Warriors can still win the championship based on what I saw in training camp, there's a video right here. It's your boy MJ. See you next Saturday at the minimum with different types of content. We out and we vibe.